My name is Gu Xiong. So I'm an artist from China, but 30 years ago. So this year is my 30 years in Canada. I'm a professor at the UBC Fine Arts Department. I'm a contemporary artist. I'm doing exhibition nationally and internationally. So this time I come to Nelson Museum of Art and History. I made an exhibition called The Unknown Remains, which deals with migration, globalization, and personal identities through this exhibition. So I made a big cargo cargo ship here, called the Yellow Cargo, because the cargo ship is a symbol between migration, globalization, and localizations. So that's why that's very important, symbol to link those three areas together. The idea is to bring my old work into this exhibition because when I start to research on Chinese immigrants in Nelson, that was the start point. I look into what they have done at the right beginning over 100 years ago. They were started as railroad worker, mining workers, but also after that time, they became working the laundry, restaurant, house servant, and also garden, vegetable farms, cooks. So those are all low-paying jobs. They start from that bottom. But that kind of experiences linked to my beginning early migration experience when I started in Vancouver in 1990. I started from low-paying jobs. No matter what, I was an instructor in art school, a well-known artist in China, but to come here without a language, I had to start from the bottom. I did a car wash, $5 an hour, a laundry job, making pizza, but finally got a good job at the UBC cafeteria to be a busboy. But it was a union job, so got $10 pay. That's doubled from other low-paying jobs. That was a situation how I started from the bottom, then to stand up, to learning the new language, but fit into the new society, and to share my experience as a new immigrant here, living between cultures, to rebuild up my identities. So then doing that research about Nelson Chinese here, then I suddenly think, I have lots of my works I did about my migration experiences. So those 10 joints, those 4 large joints, and also those 6 smaller joints, that all from my experiences at an early time. Because this is also linked to those international migrant workers. I start from year 2012, I start to research on international migrant workers from Mexico, from Jamaica, and other countries. from BC, but also Ontario. That was very interesting for me to look into their situation because they came to Canada, work for 8 to 10 months a year, but their working visa has to be renewed every year. I met someone who worked in Ontario, like on the lake area, for over 38 years. So every year he back and forth between Jamaica and Ontario until he retired. He finally returned to Jamaica. Then I also went to Jamaica in the Blue Mountains. I visited his village where he stayed there. So, but that international migrant workers' experiences to send to other countries, work there for that long period, they couldn't see their family, children, but to bring the money, bring the food, to send back to them. That kind of experience also linked to me about my Cultural Revolution time. I was sent to the countryside for 4 years. Yeah, without know anyone there, without knowing what was my future at the time, except hard work on the field. So there was no hope. So that's why I started to do sketches, to searching for my inner self, but also build up my confidence for my future. So when the Cultural Revolution finished, then I could go to university to study, then became an instructor in the art school. So that kind of experiences, but also the understanding of globalization, from early time up to now, what's going on in today's world. Yeah, so the cargo ship was my sample to talk about this kind of situation, because those shipping boxes all, have to be packed with workers, with their laboring times, and also with their, emotions away from their home, but for survive, they have to do that. So those type of things to dealing with capitalism, consumer culture, but also the goods, be sent around the world. So the cargo ship is a link between international and the local. So that's why I found it's very important to have that in the gallery. That is a monster. Take too many spaces away from us, from individuals. So that's why I like to let people think about.
So when I first met Gu in the sort of early years of his career here, he was very much focused on, no surprise, his own and his family's situation, coming to Canada, being in Vancouver, what does it mean to be here, but also isolation. So this amazing drawing behind where you look up the stairs out of a basement. Their first apartment was a basement. There were language barriers. So in this series, you see the family as they were at that time in '95, Gu reflecting on working, at the university, working in the cafeteria. They go on strike. So there is a younger Gu standing up for fairness, something that he had done in China, but certainly the opportunity just to stand up more in Canada, more freedom. Guli, his wife here, who, like Gu Xiong, challenged not just being isolated because of being new, starting out, not having a lot of resources, but language. How do you connect with a place where you don't really speak the language? And then their remarkable daughter Yuigu. I'd say Yuigu is now like a critically acclaimed, remarkable documentary filmmaker. And I love this drawing because the look of stern, serious. This is Yuigu. So for me, this is where my relationship to Gu and his family begins, but it also opened a door looking much back, deeper into Chinese history, but also opened up what has now been 24 years of many, many projects and conversations and dialogue through shows, through writing, where the conversation about that was originally specific to Gu coming to Canada, making connections to a history of the Chinese coming to Canada, that then expanded and overlapped into our mutual interests in migration, in people that become marginalized, whose voices are not heard. And so much of the work that I do as a writer and a curator looks at those kind of like who's been left out. And what are the systems that continue to perpetuate the erasures and the absences from museums and archives and stories. And the reason I wanted to just sort of jump to those images over there is when you go look, you'll see a mix of contemporary and historic images of Chinese people, but also people from all over the world. And so what's happened over the 24 years, and what I so deeply value about Gu's work, is that he began by looking at his own situation, and very quickly, he's somebody who has a lot of empathy and is very generous, started to look at, well, it's not just me, it's others, right? It's not just my struggles that I want to talk about. I want, through my struggles, to understand yours, and to draw attention, through the attention he now has, to the plight of many other peoples.
I think launching a show like this is like getting a master's degree in exhibition installation. Everything about the show is big, and everything about the show has threads that connect it to the outside world. And the fact that we have been able to, or that you have been able to embed Nelson history and contextualize it in a global sense, and what that does to our perspective of ourselves, and what that does to the small artifacts that you've isolated and put in cases, and the pictures of people that don't have names, and the 851, and that is the exact number of photos on the back wall that Brent so diligently put up. All of the faces in those photographs, and that's the fascinating part about being involved in an exhibition like this, having the honor to be involved in an exhibition. When you're handling every piece and you're looking at faces and you're putting them 14 feet up on the wall, there's that symbolic distance that represents is really meaningful, and this exhibition, for all the people who've been involved in it, has been really emotional. And from the sounds of working with him, working with you, you evoke that in people because you show them who they are by showing them who you are.
Before, when I think about history, I think history is huge, is untouchable, But through my life, from China to Canada, what I have experienced and go through the history in China and also in Canada, that encouraged me to think about, like you talk about, we are in the history through our everyday life. If everyone writes their own history in writing, in artwork, or in any other mediums to be recorded, then the history will be different than the history book told us right now. So that's why when I started here in Canada as a new immigrant, so I always remember my time in the countryside in China. That time we powerless, we couldn't, handle our life because everything controlled by government. But here, to learning that our life is in our hands, That kind of adjustment takes me a few years to understand what that means when you are in freedom. In freedom, you have to make decisions, you have to take responsibilities, but not is free to do everything. I remember, I just told Anna, when I first time came to BAM Center, I was waiting for the director to tell me what I supposed to do in BAM Center from Alvin. Then Alvin Balkan, who was the director at the BAM Center for Studios, then he told me, he said, Gu, you are the boss. You have to decide whatever you want to do. I'm a helper. I just help you. You tell me what you need, then I find out to help you. I was shocked. I said, what? In my lifetime, the first time nobody tell me what suppose I do, then I have to make decision. But from that point, I started to try to learning how to be independent. But that is a long history. It's not from one day, 1 year, but from many years, even a lifetime to learning. But that one person lifetime is a little history we can recording. We can be shared. So through my artwork, I was doing that. I want to write my own history. I want to have my own museum, through my art exhibitions. Yeah, I like to tell what I have been through, what my thinking is, to share with people. As I talk about, I want to know individuals. I don't want to just know in general what happened, but I like to see individual story, what it was happened with them, then what was left there. Like that boy, the house boy. That's also interesting. Like I did talk with Andrew Hunter about that. I said the house boy's bell could be kept. Now today we saw it in life, but that boy's name is never be written down, never be remembered. So that individual be ignored, totally erased in that house. So that's why from this exhibition, I will pay attention to individuals. So that's why the Garden Bee, I picked Charlie Bean, Woody Garden, then the restaurants, the KC restaurant, Diamond Grill, New Star, and this LD? Yeah, the restaurant. So that would be individual. How could it be effective with our everyday life in this place? Yeah, then I started. I really appreciate the whole people. I mean, if without people's help, my research couldn't be done and be not that deep. Could be just in the surface. Yeah. So it's great. So I grew up in Chongqing, which is in China, which is a mountain city, surrounded by rivers, Yangtze River and the Jialing rivers. So when I came here to Nelson, then surrounded by the mountains, that also that kind of familiar with my experience where I came from. Also very interesting to think about this place, to feel good about this place, to want to know more about the history, and to bring that history back to today, what people couldn't know because it were not be told.